Station, okay, some different ones, okay. Okay. So quite some diversity, not just economics as I thought, okay. Now guys, you know what's funny? That I can see your responses in my notifications, but I don't see them in the chat here. So I'm wondering where it is that you're actually typing. I'm so confused. So you are typing here. Okay. Instead of here. Okay. So this is already a lot. Thank you very much. So maybe don't type anymore. I think I got the picture now. And this is very helpful. Thank you for all of those of you who have submitted some answers, because it helps me understand a little bit where I should be driving this. What I understand is that pretty much, very few of you, if anyone, has any background in engineering, which is not mandatory. It's not necessary, obviously. It is more about, I'm just mentioning it in order to make sure that we can cover these aspects quite well. So I see somebody says we should record this. Okay, so I'm happy to record. Say I have to record, but I don't know how to record. Okay, so code. Start recording, okay. Okay. I can see some people seem to struggle to join us, and I'm not really sure. Do we still have colleagues who cannot join us? Hopefully not. Okay. So maybe what we'll start off today, because I think there are some teething problems generally with how we start every time, but don't worry about it. I think it's important that we make a start, and we'll see how that goes. And on the way, we will break out for different issues. So first thing to say is I have a lot of stuff to talk to you about, but I'm very keen for these classes to maintain a high degree of interactivity. So I will be talking to you about various things. I will be turning to you with questions. You're very welcome to switch on your microphones and respond. You're equally welcome to type in the chat. Whatever works best for you, please do it. Switching on your microphones is not a bad idea at all. Usually it helps the class become a little bit more active. And it gives you also a better opportunity to be more discursive about the issues we want to develop. But by all means, whatever you feel more comfortable with, the important bit is that you use every opportunity to participate, because I think that's going to be really helpful for your own learning as well. So don't, at any minute, don't hesitate to interrupt me. Don't hesitate to, even if you have something that is not clear to you, if I mention something that you don't understand, that you don't know what it is, totally stop me and make sure we clarify every bit and every detail as we go. Because you are so many, and I have no way to be able to tell who is raising a hand, who is not, any of that, I think it's safer if you just switch on your mics and you talk, if you want to talk. I mean, if that becomes too noisy and that's many of you talking, then okay, I'm going to let you know. But I think for now, to make sure that the conversation is happening, just go for it. So that's that for the beginning. Now let me begin by saying that does any of you attend any energy news lately? What happened? No responses. Has there been anything interesting in the energy news recently? Have you seen anything that was of interest?
I read something yesterday that said gas prices had increased 250% since January in the UK.
Correct. So for somebody who's asking there, so the question was if you've heard anything interesting in the energy news recently. We got a response from one of your colleagues saying that gas prices have gone through the roof recently. And that's true. It is actually happening. We have an insane increase of gas prices at a very peculiar time in history, in the annual cycle, if I should put it this way, in the first instance. So why is that the case? So typically, like in every type of market, gas prices are exposed to demand supply pressures. So when you have a lot of demand, there will be a lot of demand and less supply, prices skyrocket. That's typically how structure in a floating price scheme. Now, what is happening now is a bit bizarre. Why is it bizarre? What's happening with demand now? We're approximately end of September. What's interesting now for gas supply? Is it a particularly pressured period for gas? Have a think.
We probably would be gearing up to transition into the winter period now, so I'd expect demand would increase over the next couple of months. But coming out of summer, gas usage is typically low. So I think for me, it would probably be an issue with like more of a supply side issue, so things with transmission costs, asset rentals, etc., that could be causing the increase.
So yeah, that's a good point. Let's have a little think. So are all of you right now based in Rimini or somewhere else? Or are you also joining from other places?
Other places.
Yeah,
also from other places.
Come on, type some of the other places on the chat. I want to see. So the reason I'm asking you is that even myself, being in the UK, and even though today it's not a particularly warm day, heating is off. Yeah, we don't use heating yet. So it is quite an interesting one that at a period where we don't really use heating. I don't know how it is at the places where you guys are. I see most of you in Italy, some of you north than Rimini, somebody unique. Do you guys use heating right now?
Yes.
No, we don't. I'm not.
So somebody does. Okay. Okay. So I'm asking you that because the main driver for gas demand in Europe is the heating season. We use gas for other purposes in Europe. Don't get me wrong; it's not just for heating homes. But Baku, oh wow, okay. Azerbaijan, okay, that's a different place altogether. So we use heating in Europe, gas in Europe, mostly for heating purposes, right? So we use it as well for electricity generation and for other purposes, for chemical production and so on. But the truth of the matter is that we tend to have gas as you see the main price signal for gas markets is really consumption for heating. This is what really brings the market up quite significantly. Now, why is that interesting? Because right now, is not a high heating season yet. Yet prices have gone through the roof completely. So as your colleague mentioned before, that indicates supply questions in many ways. So that means that our gas in Europe, which is mostly coming from the east, is not necessarily up to speed. And that's true. The main gas pipelines that are coming to Europe are not running at full capacity right now. There's another thing which is kind of speculatory in terms of gas prices, and that is the expectation that gas prices will only rise in the next period. So what does that mean, and where do we have it? So it means that if you were to expect that your gas price is going to be, I don't know, even higher in a month's time or in 2 months' time, then you're willing to pay today a high price already. If you think that the forthcoming price will be even higher, then today's price doesn't sound very bad, actually, even if it's high. And that is partly what is happening, because there's a bit of a market panic right now, where lots of people who want to buy gas fear that if gas is already expensive in September, what's going to happen in December? It's going to be mayhem with gas prices. And that might be true. We don't really know what's going to be happening in December, because everything depends on gas flows from Russia predominantly to Europe. Really, this is the biggest parameter affecting all of that. So that's where we are at the moment with the gas issue. Why am I mentioning that? Yeah, that is because I want us to start having, it's a very early stage, and we haven't discussed at all about market dynamics or any of that. I just thought I would start you off with a little bit of the current affairs and what is happening. I'll share with you, let me see if I can share with you a couple of a website I have here, just to help you a little bit browse through some of the implications of what we see right now. If I go here and I share my screen with you, can I do that? Windows, yes, that's the one. Can you see my screen?
Yes. Yes.
It's a map.
Yes.
Yes, of
It's a
course.
map with prices and stuff. Yeah? Can you see that?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Good. Okay. So this is the Apex Spot market. This is essentially an energy market. Yeah. It's one of the several energy markets. Energy and other such commodities are being traded in markets like a stock market. There's no real difference. There are markets with specific contracts and specific dynamics, specific arrangements. There's no significant difference from what you would probably already have seen in normal stock markets. Contract dynamics are maybe a little bit different, and contract arrangements are a little bit different in terms of, there is no high frequency trading, there is no millisecond type of trading. These things don't exist in energy markets, but you have the equivalents because in energy markets you deal with physical flows to some extent, at least. So you want to be able to have the contracts that could be delivered in reality. They're not always delivered. Sometimes they're traded before they're being delivered, but that's one of the parts of the market. So what I want you to see very quickly here is a few of the prices you see here. So every price you see reflects a specific part of a certain country or a whole country market if a country has one market by itself. Yeah. So take a quick look. Tell me if you see any odd things happening in here. So these are, just for your understanding, these are day-ahead prices for electricity trade in Europe. Yeah, in some European, it's not all European countries, in some European countries. The part that is important to flag here is, so day-ahead is essentially contracts traded today for delivery tomorrow. Yeah, does that make sense? Yeah, so it's one cycle of contracts that is being traded today, and the idea is that is the price that will be paid tomorrow on tomorrow's delivery. So do you see any odd things happening here?
North Europe is pretty cheap compared to the other
Mention countries. Go for countries directly.
I think Sweden, Norway, Scandinavian countries. But this is so weird because they are the coldest countries in the Europe, but the prices are lower than the other countries.
Let me flag something here. This is electricity. This is not gas.
Oh, sorry. I thought
Yeah.
that this.
So this electricity prices here. It's not gas. They're relevant. They're not completely, disconnected. They're relevant, and we'll explain soon why. But in the meanwhile, I want you to think of it as it's different markets. They have different dynamics.
Also, like Sweden and Norway have different values within the same country, whereas other countries have just one value, like France has 153, and they have different values depending on the latitude. Yes.
Correct. So let's pick on this one a little bit. If you see Norway has, a price, if you go all the way north, that is 49.10, and then goes down a little bit to 64.12 and all of that, and goes all the way down to 113. So that's more than double than what the lowest price in the north is, yeah? Why is this happening, you reckon?
Maybe because they use wind power, more of wind power.
Solar energy.
Say it again, what was the last one?
Solar energy.
Okay. So you see, Norway runs almost exclusively on hydro. So that affects all of the country, pretty much north to south. What is interesting is when you see prices like that and such differentials on prices, what is normally happening is lack of interconnections. So probably at the north, there is enough supply right now, because hydropower is probably providing enough in relation to the demand. But there is not enough cabling, there aren't enough cables of enough capacity to be able to transfer that energy to the south. Yeah, so there's an abundance of energy at the north, but that is not adequate to take all that energy to the south and really equalize the price along the country. In a similar way, there are connections of limited capacity to Sweden. So what I want you to be thinking of is, are there any, what we call in markets, arbitrage opportunities here? So arbitrage opportunities means when you have price differentials, there is profit to be made, and for these price differentials to be eliminated. Yes. So if, for example, if you take an extreme example here, let's see the UK, that has actually it's England's market predominantly. That is 247 pounds. Yeah, and across the channel, France is 153 euros. So it's approximately 1 on 2, the differential. Yeah. So if you were to convert pounds to euros, that would be about 300, approximately 300 euros, and France is 153. So that's 1 on 2, which is quite a crazy difference. You don't see this kind of differences very often between, nearby countries. So from a market point of view, what you would have expected to see here, if that was a different commodity, if that was price for apples, what would you have expected to happen?
That they would be importing and exporting from another country, where the price is lower, they'll export to the other country where the price is higher.
Yeah, you would have expected tons of apples moving from France to Britain, right? I mean, if you exclude Brexit from the equation, that makes all of these things very difficult. You would have normally expected trade flows to go from France, from the lower price country, to the higher price country. That would increase demand in France, clearly, because essentially it would decrease supply in France rather, and it would increase supply in Britain. So ideally, if there was unlimited capacity for these flows to happen, the price would become equalized. Is this correct? Is this clear to everyone?
Yeah.
As a theoretical model, I mean, I'm not saying it's easy to happen, but in theory, this is what would happen. Yeah, it makes sense for all of you. Nobody thinks this is crazy. Good. Okay, so let's think a little bit now in the case of electricity. Why is it not happening? What do you reckon? Why nobody is taking electricity from France to sell it to the UK, even though they could make so much money with it?
Because of grid interconnectedness or lack thereof, right? Like in Latin America, we see the same thing where countries, they want to sacrifice maybe lower prices in exchange for preserving regional energy security. So here, I mean, what's happening in a lot of these countries, they don't have perfectly connected grids, so these arbitrage opportunities aren't readily available.
So a huge thing in all of this conversation is infrastructure. Yeah. So, and somebody has somebody has written this on the chat. Yeah. So it is a big thing of infrastructure. So, do we have enough cables with enough capacity to transfer that electricity? The answer is no, we don't. In most cases, between most countries, there is some interconnections. There are interconnections between most countries. These do exist, but they're not as powerful, as strong as we would normally require them to be able to absorb such price differentials and create the difference that we need. So that is the main barrier, let's say. And the reason why we don't have that many cables is what? Why don't we have them? Because that's a lot of money to be made. Why don't we have these cables?
Maybe because we don't have a common system. I don't know, like there is a common energy system through the Europe. So
that is partly the problem. So coordination is part of the problem. That's true, but it's also the fact that we very rarely have that kind of insane price differentials that we see right now in Europe. These price differentials, they do, some price differences exist, but they're normally not that crazy as you see them right now. So that is the main reason why you might not be seeing, infrastructure building up so fast. There's another thing to point out here. So, sorry, please, yeah.
Can we say that in Scandinavian countries, because the supply of the electricity is greater than the demand, so it's going to cheaper? But for example, in the south of Europe, because the demand is greater than supply, I mean in their countries, not about the importing and exporting, and because of that the prices are different.
Yeah, sure. It is a difference between supply and demand and capacity of the market to transfer resources in and out of the country in order to, increase supply if required, or sell excessive supply somewhere else when that's required, and all of that. Now, you can see some very clear things here. Yeah? I mean, even in the Scandinavian countries, you can see, for example, Finland has a very expensive price. If you were to compare it with, I don't know, say North Norway, and these are connected. Yeah, these are connected over land. You can see up here, there is North Norway connected with Finland, and their price differential is crazy. That totally indicates lack of interconnections between the two places. And that is the main reason. There is not enough cabling interconnection between the two countries to be able to smoothen these differentials. Now, one thing to keep in mind is that if you have dealt at all previously with energy markets, would you know what is the normal price for electricity around Europe? I mean, it's different between different countries and different between seasons and all of that, but these prices now are very high. What are they like? Like, if you were to look, I don't know, a year ago, what would they be? Any ideas? Have you seen prices before?
I know in the UK it does depend on like the cap that's set by regulators. how much they can charge yearly for like energy supply. I don't know if that's the same across Europe though.
Okay, let me try to help with that, because that is a little bit of a misunderstanding here. So your colleague said, that there is a price cap that sometimes the regulators impose, and that is relevant to the price that consumers will pay. Consumers, as in me and you, that who have households. That is not exactly linked here, because the prices you see right now on this map, these aren't retail prices. So when we talk about retail prices in electricity, that is the price that consumers pay, yeah, like household consumers. The prices you see here on the map, they're wholesale prices, so they're the stock market prices. These two are not always connected. In reality, for most of us, they're not connected at all. Most of us pay a fixed price over the year. So per unit of energy, per unit of electricity, we have a fixed price, and then depending on how much we consume, we pay that many units of energy, multiply the price we have fixed. What you see here is the day-ahead market, which is the stock market part, and that fluctuates quite a lot. So these are two very different things, and on the wholesale market, no regulator ever touches their hands at all. It's not because that would be price manipulation. It's illegal. You cannot touch that. So that's free market flowing type of market. And there's no. It's like regulators imposing something in the stock market. It's not really. It's not something that they can do. It's allowed for them to do. So these are two different markets. So in terms of they're not. You're near the answer, but that's not the answer. I should put it this way.
Maybe because you can get electricity starting from gas, burning it. If you burn the gas, you can get electricity.
Correct. A lot of our electricity supply is run by gas. Yes, so we burn gas to run gas turbines, to run combined cycle gas turbines and open cycle gas turbines and whatever. And we produce a lot of electricity. A lot of electricity in Europe comes from gas. And I would say that partly, it's not the only parameter, but partly you see very expensive prices here for countries that rely a lot on gas. Yes, so for countries that their electricity relies a lot on gas. The UK is one of them, by the way. The UK is one of the countries that need a lot of gas to supply their electricity system. A lot of electricity production in the UK is gas-based. Much more so than, for example, North Norway, or, for example, Poland. Yeah, they have very low electricity prices in comparison to the UK. So that's one. It's only one of the reasons. Okay? It's not the only reason, but it is definitely one of the reasons. So you see that there's that link then. So when gas prices go up, electricity prices will go up in pretty much, many countries, because many countries rely to some extent to gas supplies to run their electricity power stations. Now, there's another thing here, and that is other circumstantial things that might be happening in different countries. So these things could be, for example, in the UK right now, we have 7 outages for our nuclear power stations. We have 7 nuclear power stations which are not operational right now. 5 have been closed for some time now because of scheduled maintenance and other issues, and another 2 have closed because we've had, some cracks have been seen in certain parts of the domes, so they needed to have inspections and all of that, so they had to close as well. So in the electricity market in the UK, we were already heading for a difficult winter because we knew that 5 to 7, as it happened recently, nuclear power stations would be off the way. They wouldn't be able to produce anything. So that's again another reason why there is lack of supply. So that has created an even greater price, which is what's causing an even higher price in the UK, right? At the same time, there's something else happening. And what is that something else? Can you imagine any other reasons? Not just for the UK, but for other countries as well.
Maybe carbon emission permits.
Correct. So we do have significant carbon pricing right now. So it used to be tiny. It used to be 2 or 3 euros per ton, but it's hitting 50, and some days 60 euros per ton. So that again has a significant impact on pricing now, and it has a significant impact on pricing when there is a specific type of weather happening. And what is that type of weather? Can we speculate?
Can you repeat the question?
Of course, yeah. First of all, just to say, for those of you who find all of this a bit of a challenge, don't worry too much. I'm just trying to start you from the deep waters of what this module will do. We will go back and explain everything we've done today, in a huge depth and quite a good, good level of detail. But I wanted us to begin with understanding the types of problems we're in because of, where we stand with the energy transition overall. So let me take you to this then. Normally, somebody mentioned before, about carbon pricing. So that is that we pay a specific permit price for every ton of carbon dioxide we emit. Yeah, because that's a climate change gas, and we need to regulate it and restrict it. So that is essentially a policy that is there to discourage the use of fossil fuels in the energy supply. Because fossil fuels are the ones that emit carbon dioxide when they're used. So if you price them with a carbon dioxide permit tax, essentially you make them less price favorable. Now, that sounds all good if you have something to substitute fossil fuels with. What would you normally substitute fossil fuels with if you wanted to decarbonize? What would that be?
Renewables, renewable energy. Yeah.
Correct. Various types of renewables. Now, a core area for renewables is, can you see my mouse cursor moving?
Yeah.
Yeah, you can. Okay, good. So in this area here, in the North Sea, you do have a few countries neighboring here. It's England, Scotland, Denmark, Germany, Belgium, France. Did I forget anything? I don't know. Norway. So these countries here share resources, share the North Sea wind energy area. This is one of the best wind energy areas in Europe, and practically really in the world, to be honest. It has relatively good supply of wind resource. It has relatively shallow waters, so you can install offshore wind farms quite well. And there are some great installations of offshore wind farms in this area. Such is the case that when there is enough wind supply in this area, this electricity production is adequate to moderate and regulate pricing across these countries of North Europe. Yeah, so there's enough wind power generation to help drive prices down. And when that happens, also carbon pricing comes down because you burn less fossil fuels, and as a result, there are fewer payments to be made for carbon permits. As things are at the moment, we're in a period that has lasted already for a bit longer than anybody have expected, where we don't have very strong winds. So as a result, our wind farms in this area don't produce that much energy, unfortunately. At the same time, solar production is not great, which again is a bit problematic. So we end up relying quite a lot on fossil fuels right now to have electricity production, which comes with significant carbon permits, in addition to the gas price, which is already very high. So that is the situation we're in. It's a part of the energy transition here, but really it's not a negative part. It's just a peculiarity. It's something that we need to design appropriate markets for. It's something that we need to design appropriate infrastructure for, and so on, so we can handle all of these issues. Now, unless you have any immediate questions about whatever we've said right now, I'll take us back to the beginning. So, any questions, let me know, or we go back to where we should have started from before I started by throwing you in the deep waters.
Sorry, can I make a question?
Of course.
You said previously that in the energy market, the price that is paid today is for the energy that will be consumed in the future. Is it right?
Not necessarily. It's just the price that you see here.
Okay.
So it's here. I don't know if you can see my mouse cursor. I'm pointing at the day ahead here.
Okay.
So this is the day ahead market, what we see. I could pick here the intraday, for example.
Okay.
And the only kind that does intraday auctions is right now is Switzerland here. Yes, so I could go to the continuous market, which you can see here a little bit. Just with the continuous 60-day market, and here you can choose timings, for example, 60 minutes or 30 minutes intervals, or 15 minutes intervals for the countries that have them, and so on. But I didn't mean to interrupt your question, so maybe your question is broader.
Thank you. I was just wondering if these high prices could also be based on some expectation that in the future, due to new policies and all the effort that countries are making to reduce the emission, the use of energy will be higher than gas, and so it's something based on the expectation of a greater use in the future. So maybe in the market there is this feeling that the energy will be more profitable than gas in the future, and so prices are rising right now. I don't know if it makes sense.
Yeah, it makes sense. As a way of thinking, it makes sense. There are limitations depending on the type of energy you're talking about. So let me first of all say that this is a day-ahead market numbers. So what that means is that we trade the contracts today for delivery tomorrow. So, and because electricity, you cannot really store electricity very easily, there's no point accumulating electricity. So you can essentially purchase electricity for tomorrow and you have to use it tomorrow. If you don't use it tomorrow, then there's no point purchasing it today. So that's the first thing to say. What you said about the future expectation is normally very true for most markets, really. And most markets that can allow accumulation of commodities. So, for example, if you are, I don't know, if you're having, let's say, coal, coal, you can buy a lot of coal and accumulate it in stores inside your country, in warehouses, and keep it there for the whole winter. That's fine. It's not going to go off. It's a resource that stays in its own right and doesn't cost so much to store. So if you thought that coal would be very expensive in 3 months, you would probably be buying a lot of coal now. Almost the same, but not as easy, happens with gas. So gas, again, if you think that gas will be very expensive in, I don't know, in 3 months' time, then you will start buying more gas today. The problem with gas is that, again, you can store, but you cannot store it so easily. So it's not like coal that is a solid fuel that you just pile somewhere and you make a mountain of coal and that's easy. With gas, you need specific types of storage that can keep it there and not let it leak and all of that. So it's a little bit more tricky. You cannot have endless storage of gas. So I would say your thinking is completely correct, but it needs adjustment depending on the storage capability that you have for the specific resource you're talking about. Does that make sense?
Yes, totally. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. So, any other questions before I take you to the beginning?
It sort of relates to something that you said back at the start.
Sure, please,
so we're talking about the speculation that gas prices will increase. Would you say that on the demand side, like the greater transition towards fixed tariffs rather than variable tariffs is creating a bubble that's forcing the prices up?
Can you say it again? Because I think I've missed you there somewhere. Say it again.
Yeah. So we're talking about the speculations causing gas prices to increase.
Sure.
So on the demand side of things, like as a utility provider, for example, I was working one last year and we saw a greater transition from our member base towards fixed tariffs rather than variable tariffs. So is that creating like a bit of a bubble in the pricing as well? Because you're basically locking people into a fixed tariff for 1 or 2 years. It's generally then higher than market price.
Right. Okay. So you see, depends on the season you're going to say that in. I mean, right now, most consumers are on fixed prices, which are way lower than what they should have been, based on what the wholesale price is. Yes. So because the wholesale price has gone crazy high suddenly. Most consumers that have fixed their prices, for example, I fixed my price back in January. So the price I have fixed for is ridiculously low by comparison to, I mean, essentially my retailer might go bust because they're having to sell electricity to me in a price that is way cheaper than what they are paying to buy it. So already right now in the UK, for example, we have numerous suppliers that are facing financial difficulties and are about to go bankrupt. So it is a major danger right now for a few of the retailers, essentially companies that don't produce their own, but they have to purchase electricity and just retail it to final consumers. So I'm not sure if that's what you meant though, because you meant probably the opposite, isn't it?
Yeah, I was talking more sort of wholesale pricing, but yeah, it's an interesting type of the UK anyway in the energy market. But
yeah,
because I was just wondering like if that was the case, that if that was sort of like forcing prices up as well. But yeah, never mind.
It doesn't necessarily. No, it doesn't necessarily. I mean, it would be the retail price doesn't necessarily affect very fast. It's probably the opposite. The retail price that doesn't often interact very much with the wholesale price. The main reason, I don't know if that's what you meant. The main reason is that as everyone is on fixed tariffs, there is no liquidity in that sense. There's no fluidity in the market. So you miss the opportunities of, let's say, individual consumer behavior with their, switching on and off appliances affecting the actual price in the wholesale market. It could happen in theory, but not with the market structure as is at the moment. There are very few consumers who are on variable tariffs and who could be able to really impact anything in the wholesale market. I think it's going to change, but it's, right now it's not a significant driver.
Okay, yeah, that's kind of what I was trying to get at. Cheers for that.
Okay, good. Okay. I don't know if you noticed, but while we're speaking, prices have changed. This is a live table, yeah, what I'm showing you here. Do you remember how high was the UK previously? It has gone down by 100. So pricing keeps changing as we go. Obviously, that reflects the fact that in the UK, as we go into the day, demand has been stabilized a little bit. But anyway, I don't want to keep you very much on that. There is a lot to be said here, and we will return, so not to worry about it. Shall I go back in the beginning, or do we have any other questions?
Sorry, before we begin, can we have some information on how the course will work? I mean, like the exam assignments, if all the lectures will be recorded, etc. Thank you.
Of course. I mean, that was part of my beginning, to be honest. I would go there anyway. So let's let me then go to the beginning, because what you asked is really part that we would be discussing about anyway today. So let me see if I can share. Can I share my other slides with you? So if I delete this and I go to here, am I sharing slides with you now? Or not really?
No.
Can't see anything, just a black screen.
Yes.
Can you see my slides now?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, managed. Okay.
No.
No?
Oh, me no.
Can't.
No,
I can't either.
Not yet, me either.
This is interesting because some of you can and some of you cannot. So what's happening? I wonder why. If I stop it and do it again, let me see, what have I done? So if I try... Now, can you see anything?
No.
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 Yes.
How is that possible that some of you can't see them and some of you cannot? Okay.
I cannot actually.
Oh, okay. That's interesting. So I think there is another way to share slides. Let me see if I can do this. If I try that, probably now you can all see them.
Yes.
Oh yes, now it
Yes.
works.
Yes.
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 Oh, yes.
Okay, okay. Let me see if I can do a different format. Can you see me now inside the slides? It's a bit weird.
Yes.
Yes, we can.
Yeah.
Yes, we can.
That is quite weird. Okay. Let me see if I can stop that. Oh God. Wait. How do I stop that thing? It's so bizarre. I wasn't expecting this to look like that. Okay, guys, I have no idea how to stop that. Let's go back there. Side by side, I think that's the correct way to do it. Can you see anything now?
No.
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 Yes.
Yes.
No.
So some of you still cannot do it. Cannot see it. There's something very strange with Teams in the way it allows me to share stuff. So the problem persists. You can still not see it. You can still not see the slides. Some of you at least.
No.
No.
I can.
Okay, there is something then freaking me out for some of you. I don't know what it is. Let me try something else. I think now you will be able to see it, like all of you probably. No, is it?
No.
Oh
No.
God. Okay.
No.
If I try that, does that work for all of you?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Now, yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
I have no idea why one thing works and the other doesn't work, but at least we know what works. Okay. So this is a start. Okay. So now I should say when I'm sharing my screen like that, the main problem I have is I cannot see what you guys are writing in the chat. So if you're writing stuff in the chat that you want me to see, then maybe don't. Maybe just switch on your mics and speak. Because when I do that, I can either see my slides or the chat, one of the two only. And I think if I try to see the chat, I have to switch off the slides. There's something quite weird happening here. So what I'd ask you to do is to please, if you have anything to say here, don't just type, just better switch on your microphones and talk. So let me get you then through this a little bit. And we'll have time to explain also, what the other things that colleagues have just mentioned a minute ago, of how is this module structured and so on. So really the beginning of all of this is how do we move inside this world of energy decarbonization and transitioning to net zero emissions. And we'll have a fair amount of technical discussions on what kind of technologies are available, how they perform, how they can deliver this kind of decarbonization that we're looking for. We'll also have conversations about the kind of policies and market structures that could enable these technologies to become players in this system of decarbonization. Time trajectories, how these could look like in the near future, what we need to replace to move to a decarbonization, what is the carbonized present that we need to replace and how we can replace it. I will be insisting quite a lot with us understanding the status quo of energy. So with us getting a good feel of where things are with the current structures in energy. Because if we don't understand that, then we normally have no clue of how to replace what is there now with something else, which will emit nothing. So, and I find it's a typical challenge when people start entering this domain of decarbonization, that if you don't know how markets work and how energy supply works, then usually you end up with very weird assumptions over how renewables could deliver decarbonization. So this is why I'm quite keen for us to get that understanding, so we're able to move along with it and really talk about solutions that are realizable and not nonsensical. So let's move a little bit on that. Let's see a couple of things that we have at hand. So there's going to be, a few parts for us to discuss: conventional energy systems, clean fossil fuels, if that's really a thing, with a few question marks there from me. Wind energy, solar energy, all sorts of renewables, future energy systems, which are increasingly becoming less futuristic and much more energy systems of the present and the very near future, if I should add. We will see also a few issues that are there and can really hinder things moving forward, energy security questions and so on. And we'll be seeing all of that through the prisms of technology, policy, and business. So there will be, like I said earlier, a fair amount of technological understanding that we need to catch up with. As I see, especially many of you don't come from any technological backgrounds, so I will be pushing you a little bit into getting your heads around what are the technology issues that we need to figure out. And I'm sure most of you will be a bit more versed with policy and maybe even business aspects from what I can see from your backgrounds. But all of these are kind of the lens through which we'll try to see what is happening in these markets. So let's crack on. Really, my aims for structuring this module are, for us to get us familiar with, like I said, broader energy issues, technology of electricity systems. We'll be talking a lot about electricity rather than other resources, but you'll see how that plays out. Basic assessments of renewable energy installations, and big pictures for energy and electricity. I'm quite keen to get you into that because I have this feeling that it's all of these new energy domains are really the big employers, the big and good employers of the present and the future. So these are areas which are growing in a very fast pace, and they do provide usually careers and jobs which are, I would argue, better than average. And they're, I would also argue, quite interesting. So I'm quite keen to get you into this sector and help you understand, what is it in there for you. And I'm always very happy when I see on LinkedIn some of you, because often I see the news on LinkedIn, some of you in the future, a few years down the line, moving into the energy sector and having your careers there. I always find it very, very inspiring and very exciting. So I hope that more of you will do that and will allow this sector to have a bit of visibility for you. So let's crack on with more. So somebody asked me about the marking assessment and all of that. So there isn't really a lot to say here, but maybe it is useful to clarify what the assessment structure would look like for us this year. So most important thing is there will be one written assignment with a deadline on the 10th of December. Oops, and I can see here that should have been 2021. I do apologize. I'll change that in the slides. So don't worry, you're not late. You still have until December this year to submit your coursework. And it will be a piece of work up to 3,000 words. I will give you a specific brief, a couple of pages of a brief with more thorough explanations over exactly what is expected. In very quickly now, if I should mention, it is a piece of coursework where you will write about an energy plan for your own country, whatever country you choose. And for that country, you will need to select a specific renewable energy type, and really work on it and make it grow in the country, in your country of choice. So we'll have a little bit of a strategy, a policy understanding of how you're moving from the status quo of that particular energy type in your country of choice to a new situation that would be, say in about 10 to 20 years, it will allow you a significant growth. So that could be that I'm choosing, for example, my home country, Greece, and I want to grow solar energy in Greece. So I'm going to say that solar energy in Greece today is, I don't know, maybe 10% or 15%, whatever the metric you want to use for counting that. But I want it to be 50% by 2030 or 2040. So I will outline a plan that makes sense, of course, on how that growth would become possible and what kind of barriers will I need to go through, what kind of policies I need to break through that, are there any incentives, any removal of disincentives that I need to go through and all of that. So it will be a country level analysis for a specific renewable energy type growth plan. So that's that. Have you got any questions for this part? I mean, I'm sure you might have, and we'll be discussing about it throughout, but in the first instance, is there something that sounds a bit weird to you?
So you're asking for a plan for a transition, let's say, transition to renewables.
Correct, yeah. It will be a specific one, so for a specific country and a specific type of renewable, to be able to limit it, because you only have 3,000 words, yeah, and it's one piece of coursework for one module. I don't expect you to write a dissertation on it. So we'll have to limit it as much as possible to make it sensible. But yeah, in broad terms, that is the plan.
We can choose whatever country in the world we prefer?
Sort of. So what I'll ask you to do is, as soon as you have selected a country, you will need to drop me a line, and I will need to approve of that country. Really what that means is that I don't want you to end up doing the same country and the same type of renewable energy sector, all of you. So that is my main worry. So I will want to make sure that each one of you does a different country and a different energy type. So 2 of you or 3 of you can do the same country, but if that's the case, you will need to be doing different type of energy for that country. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yeah, and because it's quite a few of you, of course, we will have plenty of you doing the same country. I don't doubt that. So what I'd say is, even though I haven't given you the coursework brief yet, I'm planning on doing this on Wednesday. Start thinking already if you have any specific country you want to work on and any specific energy sector you want to work on, because you'll need to book that, because it will be a first come first served sort of approach. Whoever of you are here first that wants that kind of country and that say wind energy in Italy, that's whoever emails me first is going to get it. So it will be good to hear from you ASAP on that. So that's that. I mean, I'm hoping that by next Wednesday, once you have your coursework brief and once I start hearing the responses from you, you will get my confirmation very, very soon. So then you can start already working on your selections, and hopefully that should give you enough time until 10th of December is plenty of time really to develop this work. So that's in the first instance. And again, like I said, we will be discussing about your coursework throughout the next the next month where this module runs. But if in the first instance now you hear something that you're wondering, how you should be able to run it or however, just let me know already now. I'd be happy to explain anything further. No? That sounds good. Oh, sorry, yes, please go ahead, yeah.
Yeah, I was just thinking that when you mentioned that we need to talk about policies and barriers and limitations, that means that we should base our decision on the country also on the resources or information that we have about that specific country, or is it okay?
Correct. It's a combination of renewable energy resources and existing energy structures. Okay. So for example, if you were to think, let's imagine a country. Which country could be a good example? I'll take Greece again, just because it's my home. Even though I don't live in Greece for I don't know how long now, but I always like to use it as an example. So let's take Greece. Yeah. So Greece, up to say 10 years ago, was very heavily reliant on lignite. Lignite is a type of coal. We also call it brown coal, and that was the indigenous fuel in Greece. So reliance of electricity sector on coal was really enormous. If one were to write such a type of a transition plan, we'd have to take this into account to think from what Greece would be transitioning to a new type of energy. And then you, of course, have to think, right, okay, let's say, for example, I want Greece to move to insane amounts of hydro. Well, Greece doesn't have a lot of hydro. It has a bit, but it doesn't have so much that, you could really imagine Greece moving to 50% hydro. And it is not bound to have any more because, there's not going to be so much rainfall predicted through climate change in Greece. It's probably going to be drier and drier as we go. So I'd say whatever plan we come along with has to take into account what is there right now and what is the potential for renewable energy sector. So for example, for Greece, you could probably say, I think solar has a lot of room to grow in Greece. Or maybe wind, or something like that. But I think we'll have to keep it realistic. I mean, again, I don't expect you to have an analysis that is, 100% perfect and scientifically sound, but it has to be sensible. That is what matters. There are all sorts of assumptions you will need to take, in order to proceed. But of course, with these assumptions, we should be able to make some good progress. So that is my plan there.
Yeah, I have one question about the assumptions. So for a country like the United States, you're going to have a lot more data and a lot more opportunity to crunch the numbers in Excel than in a country like Bolivia. So will you be a little more lenient if we choose a country that has just less data, less grid interconnectivity data, less financials for those companies? Will you be okay with us taking a little more liberal approach to the assumptions?
Right. Okay. So throughout, I will try to discourage you from picking countries that don't have available data online. I am not planning to stop you from doing it, but I will ask you to take responsibility for being able to access data and information from the country of choice. So if you look around you, because for example, some of you might be from, if one of you is from Bolivia and has access to the Ministry of Energy in Bolivia, then maybe that's easy for you to do it. But if somebody doesn't, if I had to do a study in Bolivia right now, I probably would struggle a lot more than I would struggle to do it, for example, I don't know, for the United States, as you said before, or for the UK, where data is really abundantly available. So I would try to encourage you to pick countries for which you can actually find some adequate data.
And for the United States, can we go state by state, because there is a major difference between...
The United States is not one country. Yeah.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you.
It's many. In the same way that the European Union is not one country. Yeah. When it comes to energy and such stuff, I would totally encourage you let's face it. Even some states, they're not even one country themselves. They can be much more complicated internally. So yeah, by all means, state by state is the correct approach then.
Should we think about it as an academical approach, an academical paper, so an introduction, abstract, and so on, or no?
I see what you mean. You will be given into the brief the kind of structure I'm looking for. It will not be, strictly speaking, an academic paper. You will be trying to respond to specific questions as soon as possible, as early as possible inside the report. And I will try to discourage you from wasting word count for repetitive sections, as abstracts, as things like that. I would discourage you from doing that. But this is, in detail explained in the assignment brief that I will give you.
Okay, thank you.
The only academic thing that you will have there will be a requirement for a degree of robustness in what you do, in what you say, and very good referencing throughout. That will be the main thing I will be very demanding of in academic terms. So, if you have no more questions of all that, shall I say... So I see some questions in the chat. Are you guys happy that your questions have been answered so far? I see Samir there. Yeah? Okay. So, if we were to move on, so I'm trying to think now, do you normally do breaks, or how should we do this? Should we have a break now for the whole 3-hour session? Is that a good idea?
Yes.
Yeah, anybody object to having a break now?
Yes, it's okay.
Yeah, sounds like a good idea. Okay, so let's have then one break now before I take you to more energy things. Should we go for, what is it? Let's say one break for all the class. Shall we have it? I don't know. Is 20 minutes good for you?
Suits me.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah? Okay, so you can have a bite and then come back, because I guess it's kind of lunchtime there, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, so you can have a bite and then come back, we can continue. Okay, so I'll see you all in 20 minutes, thereabouts.
Perfect,
Okay.
thank you.
Yeah, okay, talk to you soon.
Bye.
Bye.